नमस्ते बिटिया, हमेशा खुश रहो बिटिया। Myself, JVN Dr. Astha Sikarwar, Assistant Professor, Department of Organ of Medicine, Faculty of Homeopathic Science, Jyoti Vidyapeeth, Women's University, Jaipur. Today's topic is the examination of the patient, continued part 3. This is from JT Kent Philosophy. Kant says it is important to avoid getting confused by two disease images that may exist in the body at the same time. A chronic patient, for instance, may be suffering from an acute disease, and the physician, on being called, may think that it is necessary to take the totality of the symptoms. But if he should do that in an acute disease, mixing both chronic and acute symptoms together, he will become confused and will not find the right remedy. The two things must be separated. The group of symptoms that constitutes the image and the appearance of the acute miasm must now be prescribed for. The chronic symptoms will not, of course, be present when the acute miasm is running, because the latter suppresses or suspends the chronic symptoms. But the diligent physician, not knowing this is so, might wrongly gather together all the symptoms that the patient has had in a lifetime. Again, on the other hand, in gathering together the chronic symptoms for a prescription, it is sufficient to maintain merely that the patient has had typhoid or measles or other acute miasm. Such diseases are not a part of the chronic miasm. The symptoms of the acute attack were separate and by themselves. You must realize that the efforts to prescribe for two distinct miasms will result in error. You learn that the symptoms now are different from what they are in the beginning, that there has been a transformation seen. You prescribe for them as they are now, regarding it as a species of malaria. You prescribe for them with a view to antidoting all the drugs that he has had, and your remedy brings about a surprise. It opens out the case in a wonderful manner. A correct prescription will disentangle these two malaria miasms and show that two exist in the body at the same time, each having conditions quite different from the other. These two can coexist and have their own times and expressions without interfering with each other to any great extent. The big doses of quinine will complicate them and cause a general clouding of things, so helter-skelter and disorderly that nobody can tell anything about it. If in such a case you were to attempt to prescribe a remedy that had both these groups, you would fail to cure. Select the worst one and let the other one alone, entirely ignoring it. It's a bad policy to give one remedy for one and another for the other. Single out the worst one and cover it carefully with a remedy, and you will find it disappear and the other one come on, just as if the patient had not a remedy at all. Now, don't be in too great a hurry about removing the second one. You will find that after one has been removed, the patient will improve, and the one that has remained will become more and more apparent from day to day than prescribe for it. This illustrates the doctrine of not prescribing for an acute and chronic trouble together. Never prescribe for any two conditions unless they are complicated. Only chronic disease can be complicated with each other. The acute is never complicated with the chronic. The acute suppresses the chronic and they never become complex. Of course, the allopaths will tell you about the sequel of measles, scarlet fever, etc., but they know nothing about it, and their pathology teaches them nothing which is true concerning it. That which comes out after all self-limiting diseases have run their course is not due to the disease itself. The sequel of measles are not due to measles. The sequel of scarlet are not due to scarlet, but to a prior state of the patient. A psoriatic disorder may come up after scarlet fever or measles and must be treated as SORA. These sequel, regardless of the disease, which stirs them up as psoriatic and crop out at the weakest time, which is the convalescent period. The better the acute disease is treated, the less likely there are to be any sequel. Sequels should always be charged up to a great extent to the physician. Of course, you will find now and then some constitution extremely soric, almost in a condition of advanced decay, and for malignant scarlet fever in such a patient, it is difficult to find a proper remedy, and then the very best physician in the world may make a mistake. Yet, with good treatment in ordinary cases, you should not accept sequels such as sore eyes, running ears, etc. It is of the very greatest importance in such cases to be able to separate and distinguish one thing from another, so what you may know what you are prescribing for. You cannot prescribe an antisoric in order to prevent sequel following scarlet fever while the scarlet fever prevails. Prescribe first for the acute attack and the symptom that belong to it. It is well, however, for the physician to know all the symptoms that the patient has of a chronic character, that he may know what to expect, what he may look at the close of the acute attack for the coming out of the old manifestations of SORA, although often an entirely new group of symptoms will appear. In aphorism number 100, with regard to a search after the totality of the symptoms in epidemic and sporadic cases, it is wholly indifferent whether anything similar ever existed before in the world or not, under any name whatever. Keep that in your mind, underscore it half a dozen times with red ink, paint it on the wall, put an index fever to it. One of the most important things is to keep out of the mind in an examination of the case some other case that has appeared to be similar. If this is not done, the mind will be prejudiced in spite of your best endeavors. The purpose of all this is that you will go away and examine the patient with an unprejudiced mind, that you will consider only the case before you, that you will have nothing in mind that will distract your attention, that you may not think of things that preceded it and find out from among them a remedy while examining the patient. If you are biased in your judgment and examine the patient towards a certain remedy, in many instances this will prove to be fatal. Have no remedy in mind until you have everything that you can get on paper. Have it all written down carefully, and then, if upon examining it in relation to remedies, you are unable to distinguish between three or four, you can go back and re examine the patient with reference to those three or four remedies. That is the only possible time you can try to fit a remedy or image of a remedy while examining a patient. Get all the symptoms first and then commence your analysis in relation to remedies. The analysis of a sickness is for the purpose of gathering together that about it which is peculiar, for the peculiar things relate to remedies. Sickness have an sickness have in them that which is peculiar, strange and rare, and the things in sickness that may be wondered at, or the things to be compared with those in the remedy that are peculiar. Now, in order to see that which is wonderful and strange, it is necessary for you to have much knowledge of disease and much knowledge of the materia medica. Not so much an extensive knowledge of morbid anatomy, but a knowledge of the symptoms or the language that disease expresses itself in. In fact, we ought to regard the pure image of each prevailing disease as a thing that is new and unknown, and the study the same from its foundation. If we would really exercise the art of healing, a great deal depends upon a physician's ability to perceive what constitutes the miasm. If he is dull of perception, he will intermingle symptoms that do not belong together. Hahnemann says Hahnemann seems to have had the most wonderful perception. He seemed to see at a glance. Hahnemann was skillful in this respect because he was a hard student of materia medica and because he proved his materia medica daily. He had examined the remedies carefully, he saw them, he felt them, he realized them. We ought never to substitute hypothesis in the room of observation, never regard any case as already known. Now we see why it is that it does not make any difference with a physician whether he has seen such diseases before or not. The homeopathic physician is acquainted with the signs and symptoms of man, and the different diseases only a change in the combination of them, only a change in their manner, form, and representation. There is order, perfect order in every sickness that presents itself, and it rests with the physician to find that order. The homeopathic physician need never be taken unawares. These all about the examination of the patient as per Dr. J.T. Kent. This session powered by Digital version 2.0, Jyoti Vidyapeeth Women's University. I hope you are satisfied with my digital session. If you have any query, please mention it in comment box. I will resolve it. Thank you.